Hey everyone, JCS StarCraft bringing you Game 2 of the Winners Bracket Semifinals between BratOK and DeMusliM for the Homestory Cup number 1. Action getting started here on Kulos Ravine. BratOK going to be spawning as the red Terran in the upper left-hand corner, and DeMusliM spawning as the teal Terran in the bottom left-hand corner. BratOK is currently up 1-0, and this is the Homestory Cup number 1 hosted by Take, who is a European caster and player. This is actually hosted, I think, all the majority of the players were playing from within his home. So a really fun match by him, and the players having the ability to be right there across from each other, I think is always exciting. Meanwhile, it looks like right here DeMusliM, temporarily distracted by my phone. DeMusliM going to be throwing down supply depot behind right here as well. In the previous game, he threw down a pretty interesting, while he was teching up to the Banshees, a kind of secured his base and just hunkered down right near his base. Didn't bother choking off at all, going against the other Terran player. BratOK eventually went with Tank Viking and just kind of overtook his opponent, as he did have more Vikings, which is the important part of the Tank Viking battle. Hopefully, I'm personally not a very big fan of Tank Viking, as it usually ends up being that Viking battle in the air that wins everything, and whoever has more Vikings is the victor, so not as much play. Although in the last game, BratOK did psych out DeMusliM temporarily, going for a move and doubling back around to catch him off guard, eventually wiping out that big army of his right there. DeMusliM going to be throwing down and just locking down this top side. I imagine more structures are going to be going down across here and kind of bunkering off on both sides, building a little fort for himself. DeMusliM, of course, is the strongest Terran player in Britain, one of the stronger Terran players in the entire world. On the BattleNet ladder, he has an 80% win ratio, which is very ridiculous for any player to have, and I'm not quite sure how he's able to maintain that, but definitely a force to be reckoned with. And BratOK is the strongest Terran player in Russia, so Russia versus the UK right now. And BratOK looks like both players are very similar opening yet again. Curious to see whether or not DeMusliM will change his play. In the last game, he just opted to go for a ton of Marines. I'm not entirely sure why or what his strategy was, as he did see some tanks coming out. I think he does know that BratOK predominantly is a player, so who really likes to use Marines and use that bioinfantry to do as much harassment as possible, stay mobile on the map, and do a lot of hit and run tactics. So I think DeMusliM, using that knowledge in the last game, opted to go for mass Marines. Possibly didn't expect BratOK to actually go Tank Viking, as I haven't actually seen BratOK do that myself. So, and that might be an explanation as to why he kept pumping out Marines even though there were so many tanks out onto the field. And he did have almost had it in that big battle. I think if he was able to siege down, might have been able to even out that battle a little bit. And yeah, it looks like DeMusliM is going to be kind of doing some sort of cool wall off with this with his buildings right now, and Marine now coming out, both Marines, and it looks like BratOK just going to be going 1-1-1, pumping out Hellions and trying to get on that early harassment if he can. Although it is Kulos and they are on the cross positions right now, so definitely a long way to travel, and this is favorable to DeMusliM if he is going to go for the Banshees, as it will take that much longer for BratOK to come down and apply pressure. And with this bunker right here, although this building placement out here is a little bit far away, but perhaps DeMusliM has something in mind, completing the top of his wall right now, and looks like he is going to be locking in at the moment. So not too much action going down on the map in this early game. BratOK this game might be going for the late tanks yet again, but so far it looks like he is going to be going with his standard and M build. I expect another barracks to go down some point soon, and DeMusliM will be going Banshees yet again in this game. Cloak is being researched right away right now, and looks like he will be walling off down here as well. So Marines rallied here, trying to protect, holding off as long as he can until that Banshee comes out, as that does take a significant amount of resources, 200 for the Cloak research. And so he is going to be behind in units and in army count temporarily, so vulnerable to any sort of major one-base push or timing attack from his opponent. And it looks like in this game, BratOK will be going with the Banshee as well, although Cloak not being researched for him. So BratOK moving in to test the front door, see what his opponent has, and does have a medevac with several Hellions planning a drop in the back. So a two-pronged attack right here. BratOK going to be trying to draw out the forces to the front while his Hellions come into the back, or possibly the other way around, both units moving in at the same time. But unfortunately for BratOK, Marines are ready there to go, and the other Marines are coming down at the top as well. The Banshee does come out, but Cloak isn't finished yet for DeMusliM, so dangerous for that Banshee to be out there. Trying to attack as much as possible to reinforce as well. DeMusliM doing a great job just microing this Banshee, although he has to be very careful at this point, and the Hellions are going to keep the Marines at bay temporarily. They can fry as long as they want here, but not going to be able to do too much damage. And DeMusliM does get Cloak finally, and now that BratOK definitely has to retreat. I don't think he actually wants to engage at this point. Might be able to throw down a scan, but pretty dangerous, and might be a waste of a scan just to hunt out that one Banshee right there. So Cloak being researched for BratOK right now as well, just pumping out more Marines as he does know that other Banshee is in the air and going to be taking his expansion. Does drop off one of the Marines up here so that he will have sight on the expansion, and going to be doubling back for another try at the supply line. This time it might be a little bit more successful as the DeMusliM's forces were temporarily trying to take down the rocks. DeMusliM just pulls off half of his SCVs. Pretty smart move by him as he needs to continually mine, and actually pulls off the set of SCVs that would get harassed. The other set just happily mining away right now and trying to follow this. Unfortunately, there's no way to take it down unless he throws down a turret, but it's just going to run away at that point. So DeMusliM now focusing on getting his expansion up and going to be pumping out possibly another, looks like Viking in the air. Already has 2 Banshees down and might be going out to harass. BratOK has 2 Banshees as well and is going to be moving out across the field. Cloak probably going to finish pretty soon, although there is that Raven for DeMusliM at this point, so he is ready for any sort of counter Banshee attack. This Viking going to be up in the air as well, and BratOK moving down to the top, trying to fish out whatever he can with these 2 Banshees. Cloak looks like it's going to be finished. Cloak is finished now for BratOK as well, and the Viking, although there are 2 Vikings out, there's a second starport out for DeMusliM in this game, and going to be getting tanks on the ground to reinforce. The Banshees are moving in at this point, and will they be able to do that much damage? I'm not really sure. I think he has to retreat right now. Scan is going down, and it looks like one of the Banshees going down, possibly another one as well if he's not careful. BratOK barely able to escape with that second Banshee, and now the Air Force of DeMusliM now moving across the field wants to pick off this Banshee if it can. And it actually does find it in the air, that Raven there, to detect any sort of detection if possible. And DeMusliM now setting up on his natural. BratOK going to be doing the same, a little bit behind at this moment. Looking quickly at the army tab, both players are pretty even. Income tab, decently even as well. I think DeMusliM actually did lose a few SCVs in the harassment from BratOK, so behind just a little bit there. Although moving in right now, going to try to do some harassment onto this command center if he can. And BratOK realizes that there is stuff going down, so holds back his SCVs, brings in his reinforcements. These Marines and medevacs should be able to do it. Triple auto turret going down, really trying to take down this orbital command. And BratOK trying to engage, throws down a PDD, so these Vikings are going to be temporarily unable to fire at anything. And good timing from BratOK to really move in there, taking this time, having that patience to go in. Now DeMusliM going to be trying to find something else to attack. Might be able to take down this reactor if BratOK can't get there in time, and actually does take it down, yes, and then runs for the retreat, cloaks his Banshees right away and gets out of there. So minor setback for BratOK as that reactor does take some time to throw down, and so he might be behind in the Viking count if that really is the war that's about to happen. And more starports going down for DeMusliM at this point. That is crazy. He's throwing down 4 starports, so it looks like he wants to really go for the Air Force. Really bring out Her Majesty's Air Force right now, and DeMusliM going to be reinforcing right here. I have not seen a lot of airplay battle in as this much in StarCraft 2. He might be going for a mid to late game battle cruiser, but at this point it looks like he really is trying to favor that Viking Banshee combination against his opponent BratOK, and might be thinking that BratOK is going to go tank Viking this game, which he is as well. So this is a good combination for DeMusliM if he can bulk his army up in time. This is a very costly build for him as well, as Banshees are pretty gas heavy, so he might be trying to take that third expansion sometime soon, and my assumption is that he's going to be going for the gold right now as they are in the cross position. BratOK now going to be moving out across with a pretty menacing tank Viking army on his side, so I'm curious to see whether or not DeMusliM is going to be able to hold this off with just his Viking. It looks like he's a Viking, and there is a lone SCV out here. I'm not quite sure why this SCV came up. Oh, just to hold the Zelnaga watchtower, and might have come out for some sort of repair. Trying to engage right now, probably not the best of options. A PDD is going down, so the other Vikings are unable to fire at the air, and the Banshees are cloaked, but the scan does go down from BratOK at this point, and it looks like DeMusliM did lose that battle, although he did hurt BratOK's army temporarily, and BratOK coming in for the repair at this point, coming back and actually re-engaging, catching BratOK a little bit off guard during that repair session. And I think DeMusliM does have to retreat at the moment, but he is going to be pumping out significantly more Vikings and a ton of Banshees coming out for him as well. So just keeping that Viking count up and going to be able to match BratOK, who looks like he's just going to be pumping out Vikings from that one reactor at Starport. BratOK, meanwhile, looks like he's going to be going with a ton of ground forces now that he thinks his opponent has gone mostly Banshee Viking, and it looks like DeMusliM will be taking his gold. BratOK the first to establish his gold, so going to be ahead slightly and temporarily there. So still going to go with that tank Viking combination, but a ton of Marines on the ground as well, and should be rather interesting to see whether or not this play works out for DeMusliM. Very unorthodox play against a fellow Terran player who in the previous game I guess did go for a tank Viking, so DeMusliM really wants to try to counter that as much as possible. Triple Mule going down on the gold immediately, and looking at the income, it looks like DeMusliM was able to catch up in the harvester count, so was consistently pumping that out more. He is actually pretty good on the army count as well, so DeMusliM just doing a great job with his macro during all these battles. And now moving out across the field, that lone Marine is temporarily hidden, I think, from the rock, so he wasn't able to see it, and now so slowly blasting away. A single tank down for DeMusliM as well. +1 going down for BratOK's infantry forces, and a ton more Vikings coming out right now. So just pumping out a series of Vikings and trying to really dominate the air. Temporarily supply blocked for DeMusliM. BratOK going to be breaking down the backside rocks. I think he's going to be trying to do some sort of flank maneuver all the way down. I might